In the spirit of the title of this video, I will be posting this thoughtlessly. And you may be wondering, people have asked me why I am not editing these videos. Well, I'll put it like this. I view myself as this guy in YouTube. I am, I'm not like an established creator yet. I don't have the habits or the thought process. And I remember when I first started working out again this year. Now I'm like pretty frequently going, and I feel pretty good. But the first time I just went and did 10 minutes and then left. And so these first few videos are the equivalent of me just going to the gym. And I expect to see myself eventually get a nice figure and get nice and established. But first, I'm going to the gym. This is today's workout. So stay tuned if that sounds interesting to you. Today I wanted to do a retrospective. I wanted to reflect on what's happened because I looked at my videos and I saw the last one was December 9th last year, and a lot has happened since then. So we'll go through that. I thought about very recently, like thinking through recently, I did have like some big roadblocks recently, and I'd like to share them with you because they led to realizations that I think are quite valuable. The first one is I had a few conflicts in my life that I couldn't resolve, and I ended up getting lost and confused. I spent a long time like thinking it through and trying to figuring out how to decide, right? And anyways, figuring out how to decide, and then I realized something after being stuck for like 2 weeks, that figuring out what to do, getting faith and motivation are only required for the thinking mind. And the solution I found was I don't need to think. I don't need to decide. And that was one of my old videos too. I don't need to think. Movement itself is a beautiful reward, like a child. And the analogy I share with a lot of people is, okay, there is joy in running as fast as you can. And the analogy I share with a lot of people is the kid. When you go to a playground and you watch kids, they're running fast and they're screaming. And you might try and think and ask the kid, why? Why are you running and screaming? But if you're asking that question, then it already shows you are living in a different reality than the kid. And I think since we all come from being kids, that actually kids reveal to us that the fundamental aspect, the fundamental aspect of life is not thought, it's not logic, it's something more fundamental. You can move completely with zero meaning right now. And I'm proving to myself, I'm exploring the idea that that's actually really fun and way easier. That's high level problem number one. Yeah, so this was me, about a month and a half ago. But then I realized, I don't have to think. And then very recently I had this inner ear infection. And what that created was I was getting angry, frustrated, and I had a lot of tantrums. And what I realized from that is something very interesting about frustration, which is frustration can only be experienced if you imagine a better outcome and get angry that outcome didn't happen. In other words, you are being delusional. The only way you can be frustrated is if you imagine something and then treat that imagined thing as if it was reality and that it was stolen from you almost. And the solution was to realize that imagined outcome is not possible, and to live as if it was is delusional. So I devised this trick that I'm using right now, and I'm applying it, and it seems quite useful to me, which is pay attention and watch for when I get frustrated, and then walk myself through that thinking, which is that frustration I'm feeling is literally delusion. It's literally me thinking that something that didn't happen should have happened, but it didn't happen, so it shouldn't have happened. And I decided to adjust my reality to what happened and live from there. So in the nearest period of time, those were my biggest realizations based on these big problems. And I have other things prepared here that I realized. So I've recently been testing this new way of life, which is, not thinking, letting go of logic, and pursuing instead energy, which is just like doing as many things as I can without thinking at all, which is very much what Gary Vee talks about, which is just not judging. And the result so far has been tons of items completed. I'm practicing choosing and going immediately. And I'd like to show you. This is the kind of list I'm using to figure out what to do in a day. And I wrote out for this week, there's a lot of things I've done. And I'm really not judging. My view is essentially that over time I will just decide which ones I want to keep doing and which ones I won't. But for now, I'm just going to do. Just like, the fat man goes to the gym and works out without having to figure out whether he wants to do back today or chest, right? So behind me, I finally built the 3D printer, and on my list soon is going to be like building my first 3D object. Over here, finally, I've strung my guitar. And over here, this is the podcast studio I have set up with my friend, and we'll see where it goes. And in the spirit of thoughtlessness, I've been doing a lot of things. I mean, if you look on this list, there are a lot of things that have just been backed up that I just haven't been. I finally got to doing, and then I studied a lot of Korean here. And then one book I'm reading that's really fascinating, along with 3 other books, is Spiral Dynamics. I'm releasing YouTube videos. I'll include this one. And I've just been getting these things out of the way that have been backed up on my list. And I mean, the bench back there is starting to look a lot better. And one principle that I've been really using, about thoughtlessness. Let me zoom into that a little more. The principle that I've been using that I've been sharing with people is whether I do something or I don't do something. It's actually the exact same amount of effort. The only place that something can take effort and it can feel like it's not worth doing or it's just too much. It's too much of a pain is in your head. And the classic, the cliche example people talk about is like on your drive home, you might zone out and go into autopilot mode and then end up home without realizing what you were doing. Well, yeah, that's the amount of effort you did with that, you took with that drive was like exactly the same as just sitting at home. And what I've been testing and proving to myself is, while doing all of this, it was zero effort at all, because I was doing it thoughtlessly. So that's been quite an exciting and fascinating experiment to run, doing that. And the thought is, yes, over time, things will just naturally fall out of my list because it's just no longer relevant to me. And like Gary Vee, I'm not judging. I'm just posting this video, and we'll see where this takes me. The other thing I have here is I learned how to track time, which I ran the experiment to decide like I could do that. I could figure out how to do that. And the principle that I've applied, one principle I understood along the way was, some people hold time to be valuable, and they have no conscious reason to hold that value. Just as, if you view yourself as INTP, you hold internally consistent logic as valuable. But there's no conscious reason why that is actually valuable. There are all kinds of things people hold valuable, and you hold it to be valuable for no conscious reason. In the same way, they hold that to be valuable too. So no reason to judge. That's one thing I realized, and so that led me to thinking these two other things. Like, you can't convince them that time is not valuable, first of all, and it's not stupid. It's just a different value, right? And in the same theme of thoughtlessness, you don't have to try to justify it to yourself. And the key that I found to learning how to do this was using SI, or in words, thoughtless focus and memory. Instead of trying to treat time as if it's morally valuable to me, because it isn't. Instead, all I do is I stare at the system in question, and I seek to absorb every last detail over and over until it becomes a part of me. And specifically, this was about the subway. If I know which train I'll have to take to make it on time, and I know every detail, then it's really hard to make a mistake. So when I figure out when I need to leave, I just stare at all the trains. I know exactly when all the trains are coming, and as long as I know that I've discovered, then it's really easy to be on time. And all of these practical things I've discovered are easy to track if I avoid using logic to explain them, and I simply thoughtlessly cycle through the details over and over again. So that takes me back to this to-do list. All I do is I thoughtlessly look at the next item, and I do that, and I stare at it until it's done. And that was a big source of freedom for me recently. That I want to reflect on. So yeah, and that's the biggest theme. The biggest theme is I've found in this most recent phase of my life that trying to logically walk through and explain everything is a flawed tool, because there's so much that exists in this world that cannot be explained and is not explained, and to attempt to live that way is quite limited. So I think that's that for this video, and I look forward to talking to you next time. See ya.